You look at the Christian community, where do we go for our news? Where do we go for our science? Where do we go for our facts? I'm afraid that sometimes we go to the most dynamic speaker, we go to a charismatic talk show host, we go to someone who has a political bent to him or her, and we try to get our accurate information. I serve as the pastor of Church Without Religion. It's a non-denominational church here in West Texas. One of my key goals is really to help people by showing them the love and grace of God.
Andrew and I met in grad school. I was the large group coordinator for a Christian student group called InterVarsity. One of my jobs was to organize the speakers, the other was to greet people.
So she greeted me, and then I married her, but there was a few years in between there. But I was taken by her right away, just really sensed that she was serious about her faith, and she just had a deep care for other people. When I met Catherine, she was an atmospheric scientist getting her degree in that field, and I didn't even really know what that meant.
When we met, I think that we thought we had more in common than we did. Coming from Canada, I had never met anybody who didn't think climate change was real.
I asked her, isn't this a natural trend? Isn't this just a cycle? What about volcanoes? What about cow flatulence? What about this? What about that? I pulled up everything I could off of the internet.
Just like a blanket traps our body heat on a cold night, in the same way, this amazing natural blanket of heat-trapping gases traps the Earth's heat. It's made up of carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. Well, if this blanket is natural, what's the problem? We're adding more of these heat-trapping gases to the atmosphere, and we are in essence wrapping an extra blanket around our planet.
Is this data fabricated? Is it one big conspiracy? Or is there something to this?
My perspective was, well, the grass is green, the sky is blue, climate is changing due to human activities.
I had really assumed that there was no validity to any of that.
He grew up in a community, in a university, in a family that didn't think that climate was changing, and if it was, it certainly wasn't because of humans.
Yeah, there wasn't a moment when I just decided that climate change was real. It was more like a process.
When the tide turned was when we went together to NASA's website, and he downloaded the temperature data from NASA, and he put it into Excel on his own computer, and he plotted it.
Just seeing NASA's website, global average temperature, looking at the graph and realizing, look, it goes up. I have to admit that.
And as he would say at that moment, he had a decision to make. Either NASA, who put men on the moon, was involved in this worldwide conspiracy to fake this issue, or it really was true.
Ultimately, I think I had to come to the conclusion that a thermometer is not Republican, a thermometer is not Democrat. This issue is one that's independent of politics. It's not my job to convince anyone that climate change is real. I'm a pastor, not a scientist. My wife is the climate scientist.
We care about a warming planet not because of a little change in global temperature. We care about it because it's affecting us in the places where we live. It's affecting our weather patterns. It's affecting our heat waves, our heavy rainfall events. It's making our hurricanes stronger.
She simply has one message, that she's a climate scientist, that climate change is real, and that as a Christian, we should really care about that.
There aren't any verses in the Bible that tell us how to address climate change. It'd be a lot more helpful if there were. But there are a ton of verses in the Bible that talk about our attitudes.
What if God's will is not about lining up all of your circumstances like bowling pins? What if God's will is something deeper and richer than that? What if God's will relates simply to your attitude in the midst of any circumstance?
One of my favorite verses is in the book of Timothy that says that all that counts is our faith expressing itself through love.
Christians are not called to have one concern. We're not called to be so focused on one thing. But the point is that we are called to love other people. And if there are real people in real places being affected, then this is one way, one real, tangible way to love and care for the poor who are going to be hit the hardest by climate change. This is one way to truly live out our Christian faith.